What's up everyone, and welcome back to Heart of a Soldier. Today I'm bringing you a heart-pounding tale inspired by real events. A story about a soldier, a father, and the impossible choice between following orders and following your conscience. This is the kind of story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, questioning everything you think you know about right and wrong. Before we dive into today's intense military drama, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow and brings you more incredible war stories like this one. Also, I want to hear from you throughout this story. What would you do in Marcus's position? Have you ever had to choose between orders and conscience? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Now, let's jump into the sniper's dilemma. Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen pressed his eye against the scope, adjusting the focus until the distant building came into crystal clear view. The morning sun cast long shadows across the war-torn streets of Kabul, Afghanistan, painting the scene in harsh contrasts of light and darkness. From his position on the rooftop, 300 meters felt like 3,000. Overwatch 1. This is base command, crackled the voice through his earpiece. Target acquired. Marcus shifted slightly, his ghillie suit rustling against the concrete. Affirmative. Base command. Building secured. Awaiting visual confirmation on target. 2 days. That's how long he'd been lying in wait, watching the 3-story apartment complex through his rifle scope. Intelligence suggested that Khalil Hassan, a high-value Taliban commander responsible for multiple IED attacks on coalition forces, was hiding in apartment 3B. The mission was simple: eliminate the threat, save American lives. Marcus had been doing this for 6 years, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq. His record was impeccable: 43 confirmed kills, all clean, all justified. He was known among his unit as Ghost, for his ability to remain invisible and deliver precise shots when it mattered most. But today felt different. Today, something in his gut twisted with unease. Ghost, you copy? The voice belonged to Captain Rodriguez, his commanding officer and longtime friend. Copy, Captain. Just waiting for the right moment. Roger that. Remember, Hassan is expected to appear at his window around 0800 hours for his morning prayer. Intel suggests he's been following this routine for weeks. Marcus glanced at his watch. 7:47. 13 minutes. He'd studied the intelligence reports until he could recite them from memory. Khalil Hassan, 34 years old, former Afghan army officer, turned Taliban insurgent. His signature weapon was roadside bombs that had killed 12 American soldiers and countless civilians over the past 8 months. The man was a monster, and monsters needed to be stopped. But as Marcus settled back into position, watching the empty window frame through his scope, he couldn't shake the image of his own apartment back in Denver. His wife Sarah would be getting their daughter Emma ready for school right about now. Emma was 7, the same age as Hassan's daughter, according to the intel files. Focus, Marcus, he whispered to himself. Just another job. The minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. At 7:58, movement caught his attention. A figure approached the window, tall, bearded, wearing the traditional white prayer cap that Hassan was known for. Marcus's finger found the trigger, his breathing slowed to the steady rhythm he'd perfected over years of training. Visual confirmation on target, he reported quietly. Preparing to engage. Copy. Ghost. You are cleared to engage. Take the shot when ready. Marcus centered the crosshairs on the figure's chest. One squeeze, and Khalil Hassan would be eliminated. One squeeze, and 12 dead soldiers would have their justice. One squeeze, and the roads would be safer for his brothers in arms. But something made him hesitate. Through the scope, Marcus watched as the figure knelt for morning prayers, his movements slow and deliberate. There was something about the way he moved, a gentleness that seemed at odds with the brutal terrorist Marcus was supposed to be hunting. Ghost, what's your status? Captain Rodriguez's voice was sharp with concern. Stand by, Marcus replied, keeping his voice steady, ensuring clean shot. He adjusted his scope's magnification, bringing the target into even sharper focus. That's when he saw it, a detail that made his blood run cold. The man's left hand was missing 2 fingers, but according to Hassan's file, the terrorist had all his digits intact. This detail had been specifically noted because Hassan was known for his skill with explosives, requiring nimble fingers. Marcus's heart began to race. He zoomed out slightly, taking in more of the scene. Through another window, he could see children playing, 3 of them, all young, all innocent. The intelligence reports had mentioned that Hassan lived alone, using the apartment as a safe house. Base command. I need verification on target identity, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. Negative. Ghost. We have positive ID. Hassan, Halil. You are cleared hot. Take the shot. But Marcus couldn't pull the trigger. Not yet. He watched as the man finished his prayers and stood. In the morning light streaming through the window, Marcus could see his face clearly now. Weathered, tired, but kind. This wasn't the face of a killer. This was the face of a father. A woman appeared in the frame, carrying a tray of tea. She moved with the easy familiarity of someone in her own home, not the cautious behavior of someone harboring a fugitive. The man, whoever he was, smiled at her and took the tea gratefully. Jesus, Marcus breathed. Ghost, what's the delay? Captain Rodriguez's voice was getting more insistent. Marcus's mind raced. Either the intelligence was wrong, or they had the wrong building, or this was an innocent man who just happened to fit Hassan's general description. But orders were orders. The chain of command existed for a reason. His superiors had access to information he didn't. They wouldn't send him to kill an innocent person, would they? Taking the shot now, Marcus reported, but his finger remained frozen on the trigger. Through the scope, he watched the man sit down at a small table. One of the children, a little girl with bright eyes and a shy smile, climbed onto his lap. The man's face lit up with pure joy as he helped her with what looked like homework. The scene was so achingly normal, so beautifully mundane, that Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. This was someone's world. Someone's everything. Ghost. We're showing no shot fired. What's your status? Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through Marcus's paralysis like a knife. He knew he was running out of time. Each second of hesitation was another second for the real Hassan, if this wasn't him, to escape. But each second was also another moment of life for the man in his crosshairs. I need immediate confirmation on target identity, Marcus said firmly. Something doesn't feel right. There was a pause. Then Rodriguez's voice came back, cold and professional. Staff Sergeant Chen, you have your orders. Intelligence has been verified through multiple sources. Khalil Hassan is in that building, in that window, at this moment. You will engage the target immediately. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, trying to center himself. When he opened them, the man was still there, now reading to his daughter from what appeared to be a children's book. The woman had returned with more tea, and all three children had gathered around the table for what looked like a family breakfast. Sir, I'm observing a family scene. Multiple children present. This doesn't match the intel profile. Negative. Ghost. Hassan is known to use families as human shields. That's why he needs to be eliminated. Your hesitation is putting American lives at risk. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought of his unit, the guys who depended on him to eliminate threats before those threats could kill them. He thought of the 12 soldiers who had died because of Hassan's bombs. He thought of his duty, his oath, his responsibility as a soldier. But he also thought of Emma, safe in her bedroom back in Colorado, reading her own children's books. I'm repositioning for a better angle. Marcus lied, buying himself more time. Negative. You will engage from current position immediately. That is a direct order, Staff Sergeant. Through his scope, Marcus saw the man look directly toward his position. For one terrifying moment, he thought he'd been spotted. But then he realized the man was looking past him, toward something else entirely. The man's face suddenly changed, the peaceful contentment replaced by alarm. Marcus followed the man's gaze and saw what had caught his attention. A group of armed men moving through the street below. Clearly not coalition forces. Real insurgents, by their weapons and movement patterns. The family in the window saw them too. The woman quickly gathered the children, ushering them away from the window. The man grabbed what looked like an old hunting rifle, hardly the sophisticated weaponry a Taliban commander would possess. Base command. I'm seeing armed insurgents in the street below the target building. Family appears to be taking defensive positions. Copy that. All the more reason to eliminate Hassan before he can coordinate with them. But as Marcus watched, something incredible happened. The man in the window, the supposed terrorist, aimed his hunting rifle not at any coalition position, but at the insurgents in the street. He was protecting his family, not coordinating an attack. What would you do right now? Comment, shoot, or wait below? Base command, Marcus said slowly. I think we have the wrong guy. Staff Sergeant Chen, you will take the shot immediately, or face court-martial. That is your final warning. Marcus's world narrowed to the crosshairs in his scope. His finger rested on the trigger, requiring only the slightest pressure to end a life. But whose life? A terrorist who deserved to die, or an innocent man protecting his family? Through his earpiece, he could hear increased radio chatter. Other units were reporting movement throughout the sector. Something big was happening, and he was supposed to eliminate a high-value target before it could unfold. But the man in his crosshairs had just fired his hunting rifle at the insurgents in the street, driving them to cover. This was not the behavior of someone coordinating with the enemy. "I need 30 seconds to confirm the target," Marcus said. "Negative? Engage now." Marcus made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He shifted his aim slightly to the left and fired. Did he do the right thing? Comment yes or no below. The bullet shattered the window frame inches from the man's head. Glass exploded inward as the man dove to protect his family. In the chaos that followed, Marcus watched through his scope as the real insurgents in the street opened fire on the building, apparently using the sniper shot as their signal to attack. "Shot fired," Marcus reported. "Target is down." But even as he said the words, he could see the man moving inside the apartment, very much alive, shepherding his family to safety. The insurgents below were now engaged in a firefight with what appeared to be Afghan National Army units that had arrived on the scene. Confirmed kill. Rodriguez's voice was tense. Marcus watched as the man he was supposed to kill helped an injured ANA soldier who had taken refuge in his apartment building. The supposed terrorist was now treating the wounds of coalition allies. Confirmed. Marcus lead. Over the next 20 minutes, Marcus watched a story unfold that turned his understanding of the mission upside down. The man in the apartment, the one he'd been ordered to kill, was working with the Afghan National Army to identify the real insurgents in the area. He was an informant, not a terrorist. The real Khalil Hassan, as it turned out, was leading the group of insurgents who had attacked the building. Marcus watched through his scope as Afghan forces, aided by the man in the apartment, successfully captured Hassan and several of his lieutenants. Marcus had been given the right name, but the wrong target. Someone in intelligence had confused the informant with the terrorist. His orders had been to kill one of their own assets. The ride back to base was the longest 40 minutes of Marcus's military career. Captain Rodriguez sat across from him in the Humvee, occasionally glancing up from his after-action reports with what might have been suspicion or concern. Marcus couldn't tell which. "Clean work out there, Ghost," Rodriguez finally said. "Intel confirms Hassan was eliminated in the subsequent operation. Your shot must have spooked him into the open." Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Through the dust-covered window, he watched the Afghan landscape roll by. The same barren hills and scattered compounds he'd been looking at for 3 tours, but somehow everything looked different now. Back at Forward Operating Base Davidson, Marcus went through the motions of debriefing. He filed his report, cleaned his weapon, and attended the mandatory post-mission briefing. Everyone congratulated him on another successful operation. Another high-value target eliminated. Another victory in the endless war on terror. But that night, lying on his narrow cot in the temporary barracks, Marcus stared at the ceiling and replayed every moment of the mission. He thought about the split second when he'd moved his aim just slightly to the left. He thought about the children he'd seen playing in the window. He thought about the man who was supposed to be dead, but was instead being honored by the Afghan National Army for his assistance in capturing the real terrorists. His phone buzzed with a message from Sarah back home. "Saw the news about your unit's successful mission. So proud of you. Emma drew you a picture. Can't wait to show you when you get home." Marcus closed his eyes and tried to imagine explaining to his 7-year-old daughter what her daddy did for a living. How do you tell a child that sometimes doing the right thing means disobeying orders? How do you explain that the world isn't divided into good guys and bad guys, but into people trying to protect their families and people trying to destroy them? The next morning brought new intelligence reports, new targets, new missions. Marcus requested an immediate transfer to a different unit, citing operational stress. His request was denied. Staff Sergeant Chen was too valuable an asset, too skilled a marksman to be reassigned without cause. But Marcus knew the truth. He wasn't the same sniper who had climbed onto that rooftop 3 days ago. The man who had never missed a shot, never questioned an order, never hesitated to pull the trigger. That man had died the moment he chose mercy over duty. Or maybe, Marcus thought, as he prepared for his next mission, that man had finally been born. 3 weeks later, Marcus received an unexpected visitor during mail call. An Afghan interpreter named Jamil approached him with a package wrapped in brown paper and string. "Staff Sergeant Chen, I have something for you from Mahmoud Razek." The name meant nothing to Marcus until Jamil explained. "The man whose window you shot through." The one who helped capture Khalil Hassan. Marcus's blood turned to ice. I don't understand. Jamil smiled. Mahmoud knows what you did. He knows you could have killed him but chose not to. He wants you to have this. With trembling hands, Marcus unwrapped the package. Inside was a child's drawing. Crayon figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. At the bottom, in careful English letters, someone had written, "Thank you for letting my daddy live. Farah." Marcus looked up at Jamil, who was watching him with knowing eyes. How did he know? Marcus whispered. Mahmoud was Afghan army sniper for 5 years before he became informant. Jamil explained. He knows the difference between a missed shot and a warning shot. He says to tell you that mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest strength. That night, Marcus called Sarah for the first time in weeks. When Emma got on the phone, chattering about school and friends and the puppy she wanted to adopt, Marcus found himself crying. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude that he had not made her an orphan by extension, had not created another fatherless child in a world already full of them. Daddy, are you okay? Emma asked, her 7-year-old intuition picking up on his emotion. Yeah, baby girl. Daddy's okay. Daddy's finally okay. Marcus completed his tour 6 months later. On his final day at FOB Davidson, he received one last piece of intelligence. Mahmoud Razak had been relocated with his family to a safer province, where he continued to work with coalition forces to identify terrorist cells. The information he had provided had led to the capture of 12 high-value targets and had prevented an estimated 43 coalition casualties. As Marcus boarded the transport plane that would take him home to Colorado, he carried 2 items in his personal kit: a Bronze Star medal for his exceptional service record, and a child's drawing of a family holding hands under the sun. The medal represented who he had been, a perfect soldier who followed orders without question. The drawing represented who he had chosen to become, a man who understood that sometimes the most important battles are fought not against enemies, but against the parts of ourselves that make us forget our humanity. Years later, when people would ask Marcus about his time in Afghanistan, he would tell them about the friends he had lost, the missions he had completed, and the brothers in arms who had served alongside him with honor and courage. But he never told them about his greatest victory, the day he chose to miss on purpose, and in doing so, saved not just an innocent life, but his own soul. In the end, Staff Sergeant Marcus Ghost Chen had taken his most important shot of all, the one that allowed him to come home not just alive, but still human. And that's the sniper's dilemma. What did you think of Marcus's choice? If you've got a similar military story, share it in the comments below. I read every single one, and the best stories might become future videos. Hit that like button if this story got to you, and subscribe to Heart of a Soldier for more incredible military tales. Ring the bell so you never miss an upload. What other military dilemmas should I cover? Drop your suggestions below. Until next time, stay strong, stay human.